Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and today, thanks to Bond Group in Waltham, Massachusetts, we're driving a 1987 BMW 325i convertible. This has an M20, the 2.5-liter inline six-cylinder, mated to a 5-speed manual gearbox. It's rear-wheel drive. It weighs a little bit under 3,000 pounds, and this is so choice. I love these cars, probably because this was the current BMW when I was born. So there were a lot of these around, and it's not just the style and the smells that get me nostalgic. It's the bassy rumble of this engine at idle. It's so incredibly smooth. The M20 is a cast iron block, 2 valves per cylinder, single overhead cam, and for whatever reason, it's just pure magic. It's fuel injected. It makes 168 horsepower, 164 pound-feet of torque, which isn't a lot, but it'll get this thing sprinted to 60 as Car and Driver tested it in period in 7.7 seconds. And you might think, man, that's a little slow. But you got to remember, the E30 M3, its performance-oriented brother, only did it in 6.9 seconds, so it wasn't that much faster. In fact, Jason Cammisa is famous for saying, get yourself a 325 IS and then do some suspension work. You'll be just fine, you'll get the experience, and you'll save a ton of money. And the E30 was so versatile. You could get a coupe, you could get a sedan, you could get a convertible, you could get the M3, you could get an all-wheel drive iX version of this car, but you need to have a bit of a stomach for driveline vibrations, because over time, that is something you're probably going to end up fighting. And they all had some little issues, but the reality was, in terms of the BMW we think of today as sometimes reliability nightmares, these are tanks. They just last. Sure, you could have head gasket failures, they could leak a little bit of oil, but we're not playing the game of E46 subframe reinforcements and all these other things. You know, they do run on timing belts and they require valve adjustments every 15,000 miles, but that's the price you pay for hanging out with one of these great ergonomic beauties. It's still good to drive today, and this is the best part, is that we're driving a real winner. This one has 59,000 miles. In fact, it was bought new at Johnson BMW in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and then almost immediately shipped off to Northern California, where it lived its life in San Francisco. But you can tell they shipped it off then because it has a Massachusetts inspection sticker that expires in July of 1988. This car has a manufacture date of June of 1987. So this got here real quick, got inspected, and went off to California, and I think that's why it's in such good shape, because NorCal has a little bit of humidity, the dashboard is all intact, and they obviously took care of this. So this is a real gem of a car, and I'm really thrilled to be able to share this with you today. This one has a manual top, so there's like an upside down door handle right here that pops this hatch up, revealing our top. I'm not going to fiddle with that today, but there are instructions right here if you'd like to open the soft top. What's wild about this car style-wise to me is just that it is very simple. It's very blocky. There's some rounded edges, but at the end of the day, it's just squares and circles. That's pretty much what this vehicle is. There's some details and contours in the body lines, which are beautiful, but somehow the previous generations of BMW look very old to me. Early 80s, late 70s BMWs look old. This somehow is timeless, and this is a really nice part of BMW design, because they sort of peaked in this era where they were able to maintain this nostalgic vibe. Their kidney grills, the headlights, the taillights, all these things just look so authentically BMW, and yet they don't look dated. This car still somehow fits in a parking lot. Gluing us to the road on a 14-inch wheel is a 185/65 section tire, and that's beautiful because not only is the suspension lovely and supple, but this sidewall does a great job of smoothing out the bumps. This is a really comfortable and confident car to drive around it. And then back here, loads of trunk space and the luxury of this very giant piston. This seemingly looks like such an afterthought to put that piston in and make it work, and it's fine, it's functional, but it is large and in a very strange place to me. And then back here, full-size spare, very clean. We love that. And that's the thing, everywhere you look at this car, it just gets better and better. There's no rust. There's really no imperfections other than some chipped paint and stuff. You've got the tool kit here, which is lovely, and this is still the same location that they were putting on my E39. So it's nice when everything's just very familiar in the world of BMW. Under the hood, this is always a joy. I love the way these hoods open. tons of space to work with, lots of access, a cable throttle, which we like. That makes this so easy and lovely to drive. And then BMW cladding on our intake manifold and our valve cover. So let's close it up and start it up and take it for a ride. Oh, that's the best. To start our E30, we've just got very simple key, ignition, we'll clutch in. Actually, let's find out if there is a clutch interlock. No clutch interlock, all right. We like that. And in front of us is like one of the greatest dashboards of all time. It's super simple, it's easy to read, it's beautiful, and when you turn the headlights on, you can't tell because we're in broad daylight, but this all illuminates in that sort of reddish orange BMW color, which is great because the reason they do that is that red is the longest wavelength, meaning that it is easiest on the eyes at night, because otherwise you might be blinded by white, green, or blue. I'm just so impressed by how intact everything is too. There's no cracks in this dashboard. I'm like afraid to touch things, but honestly, it still feels really robust. It doesn't feel sensitive. Even the 8 Series cars that I was driving around in the past, and they were lovely cars, but you know, the suspensions were weathered. They definitely had some indications of age. This is like a time capsule. The way this car idles, it has this bassy rumble that just cuts through everything and anything. If you were in a house and this started next to you, you would hear it through your walls, and that's actually something I love about it. And this engine is ultra smooth, and the way it starts to build power after 4,000 RPM, that's the sweet spot. You get over 4,000 and it all opens up, and that, to me, was really a BMW characteristic back in the day. That's what they all felt like. That's where you were like, I know I'm driving a BMW because this is how their engines behave. And it's so charming and enjoyable. And it's almost like German VTEC feel, because you're just like, if you keep it in this rev range, everything's gonna be great. But the whole way up the revs, it's ultra smooth. But that's not to say that it's not great down low. There's a good bit of torque. I don't have to keep the revs way up just to cruise and add a little bit of throttle if I needed to add or remove speed. You can just do it in 5th gear, and it's wonderful. Look at this, it hits some bumps, and it doesn't matter. I mean, you don't want to hit like a big crater or anything, but it really absorbs the imperfections of the road. This feels more luxurious than a lot of luxury cars today, I have to admit. Everything has gotten so stiff because, for whatever reason, the trend of wheels and tiny baby elastic band sidewalls has really ruined road feel in cars. And in order to get anything really luxurious, you've got to go way up the price range into those 7 Series S-Class territories. You can have it in the 3 Series from the 80s. It has power steering. It's nice and light, but I can still feel everything. There's quite a bit of turns lock to lock, so you're gonna have to put some effort into that if you were in the situation where you were like, we've really gotta take a steep turn on a canyon road, that hairpin is going to take some effort. The shifter, usually these get really rubbery and gross and vague, and this one is still tight. Just the right things must have been serviced on this car, because I just can't imagine this living so well and preserved. Just time is cruel. That guy just took a picture of the E30. See, that's the thing. This is classic, man. This thing rules. Salamander crossing ahead. Okay, I do not want to kill any salamanders in this great little car. Watch, we'll do a U-turn here. This has an insane turning radius. Look at that. It just keeps going. It's like I keep thinking I'm at the end of the lock, and I'm not. It just goes and goes and goes. It reminds me of an old Volvo. But that was the beauty of these old rear-wheel drive family cars, was that the front axle could just swing as far as you wanted, because you weren't dealing with, an all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive setup. So while it's compliant and nice over the bumps, it's also pretty nice in the handling department. Like, it's predictable. Body roll is okay. Somehow body roll became the enemy a while back, and I don't know, I like a little bit of body roll. It tells you what's going on, it tells you where you're going to be. And in the same era, Mercedes SLs felt a lot more sloppy. They didn't feel like sports cars. Those were more like grand touring cars. Where I don't know if I want to call this a sports car. It's just that I was raised with people turning them into sports cars, turning these into like autocross machines. So these became a thing. I mean, they were a bit race bred. There were E30 spec series races, and this probably is one of the cars that changed the face of track driving in America. Like, oh yeah, pick up an old E30, it's dirt cheap. The interior of the car feels so spacious, especially relative to its size. It looks like it's going to be a small car, but I have so much space. I'm really comfortable. These seats are fantastic, and they've genuinely held up over the years. They've got great side bolsters, more than I would have expected for the time period, frankly. I kind of forgot how good these seats were, and everything in the car is just driver oriented. It's all designed for me. If you're looking for like a performance variant, this isn't going to be it. You're going to get the coupe, but the convertible offers such a cool experience, because who cares? I'm not likely buying an E30 to go necessarily racing anymore. It would be like just buying a cool classic car to enjoy a tactile experience, which seemingly is dead. And I love having a cable throttle and a manual transmission the way it was intended, without a whole bunch of silly rev hang and stuff. This car just demands that you drive it. I've driven modern cars over those train tracks that felt like my teeth were gonna crack open. That's insane how smooth this car is. And there's like no rattles in the car. Not used to the gearing yet. I need to give it more of a bootful. These brakes are super competent. Everything feels like it wants you to enjoy it, and it's all balanced. Nothing feels like it's bigger than the other thing. This bridge is the bump test. There's so many little bumps and imperfections here. It's nothing. I've driven cars over here and had to like brace for it in like old Porsches and stuff, and this is absorbing everything perfectly. Fast it is not, but smooth it certainly is. It gets us up to highway speeds without missing a beat. It doesn't feel like you're gonna break anything. That's what's great about it. You get right up to redline and it's just happy as a cucumber. It just goes. Is that a saying? Did I make that up? Cool as a cucumber. That's not it. It's happy as a clam. Oh my goodness. I'm starting to lose it. I don't know, maybe a cucumber could be happy. Yeah, this is great. This is charming. You know, you could do some serious grand touring in this thing, no problems. You're not gonna set any speed records, but that's not the point. It's comfortable. It's really great with the top down too. There's not that much. I'm not getting blown around at all. While this was a mid-sized car in its day, it's pretty small now, but it still feels appropriate on a road. I don't feel like I'm driving something silly. I don't think I'm driving a clown car. Oh, I can't wait till they fix all the roads out here. That's the tricky thing about springtime, is that the weather's nice, but they haven't yet filled in the potholes. Somehow this car just glides over any imperfections. Yeah, this doesn't feel remotely abusive. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me in this gorgeous E30 convertible. I'm having a blast. I feel really honored to be able to drive a minty, fresh feeling one. This is hard to find. And bring it back down before we get into the school zone. Man, this is wonderful. Thank you so much to Bond Group for tossing me the keys to this thing. Thanks to whoever owned this thing for all these years and kept it this clean. Good job on you. You have succeeded in maintaining a... You haven't even looked into the road. See, I'm a cyclist, but I also look where I'm going before I just go into the road. That was not a smart idea, buddy. I guess I understand why people don't like cyclists sometimes, but still, human being, don't want to squish them. Anyway, E30s are now vintage, cool classics at this point. They are no longer just, oh, well, I found a cheap one and it'll be my daily driver and maybe I'll go to the track once in a while. No, now you should be treating E30s as air-cooled 911s from the 80s. You should want to buy a nice, pristine one. You should want to drive it on the weekends, maybe keep it at the lake house or something. I don't know if you get that kind of money. But this is now something that is a fun nostalgia drive, and it's also very usable. It will live up to what you remembered it as, and it is actually very, very entertaining to drive. So, thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.